The second nuclear missile formation was inspected by Dongfeng. 5C Liquid. Intermediate-range strategic nuclear missiles have a global strike range. Complete. The world has effective deterrence and no end to war. Establishing the world. China now possesses 7 types of intercontinental ballistic missiles, namely the Dongfeng-5 and Dongfeng-5. 31 East Wind, 41 East Wind, 61 Giant Wave 2 and 3 Giant Wave 3, and Thunderclap I. Unlike other types of missiles, intercontinental ballistic missiles, primarily used for tactical strikes in conventional warfare, are an important force in the strategic deterrence of major powers. Furthermore, it serves as a strategic shield for safeguarding national security and an important carrier of strategic nuclear deterrence. Intercontinental ballistic missiles all possess characteristics such as long range and large payload, and can even full coverage. Intercontinental ballistic missiles ICBMs are divided into 3 types: land-based, submarine-launched, and air-launched. Kind. The land-based version employs both liquid fuel propulsion and solid fuel propulsion. Although the launch preparation time for propulsion is relatively long, the range is far. Large payload capacity capable of covering most targets globally. Solid fuel propulsion motors are an important cornerstone of our country's strategy and strength. With enhanced sexuality and stealth, it can operate in the wild without preset positions. Be ready to respond to any fluctuations in the external environment. Survival ability significantly enhances the stealth capabilities of submarine-launched missiles, primarily carried by strategic vessels and submarines. Hidden in the deep sea, capable of launching strategic counterattacks from underwater, it serves as an intermediate force for second strike and counterattack operations. It is also the last resort of nuclear deterrence by major powers. The cardholder needs to know the global definition of an intercontinental ballistic missile and its launch. The journey requires more than 8,000 kilometers. Able to cross continents. Precision strikes on targets. And capable of carrying a nucleus. Warheads are the core force of a major power strategy and threat. Their existence is for the purpose is to prevent enemy nuclear strikes and to conduct strategic and deterrence compared to conventional tactical missiles. The maneuverability and penetration capability of intercontinental ballistic missiles. Intercontinental ballistic missiles ICBMs have a stronger destructive effect because they follow a high trajectory and will fly to an altitude of several hundred kilometers and then swoop down to attack the target. The final spread speed is even greater, to the point of being able to achieve amazing, more than 20 times the speed of sound. And the enemy carrying MIRVs. The anti-missile system is simply incapable of effectively intercepting it. From the warning hammer of Dongfeng-5 to the underwater waves of Julang-3. From Tao to Jinglei-Yi's aerial longsword, no extra slogans are needed for his every appearance. These are the most straightforward warnings to the enemy. Actually, after the DONGFENG-51, there is another powerful weapon that will be available soon. To enter service, it will be equipped with the domestically produced Sarmat-made DONGFENG-51 intercontinental ballistic missile. DONGFENG-51E's range, reaching 16,000 kilometers, it is said to be specially designed for a customized superweapon for a major power, DONGFENG-41 in 2019. Its public appearance sparked interest both domestically and internationally. He also attracted great attention and once made the West tremble with fear. The Dongfeng-4G is one of my countries. The domestically developed 4th-generation strategic intercontinental ballistic missile has a maximum range of missing information. At 14,000 kilometers, it can cover most parts of the world, and the DONGFENG-41 can carry 10 independently targetable nuclear warheads to simultaneously strike different targets. Constitutes a threat. With the precise positioning of the Baidu navigation satellite system, the DONGFENG-41E's accuracy is even higher. It has reached 2. In order to counter the STHA-80 anti-missile system, the DONGFENG-41 not only possesses, must, its orbital change capability and its terminal penetration speed reaches Mach 20. It is no exaggeration to say that once it reaches the easternmost point, with current technology, it's impossible for the FENG-41 to complete an interception at the terminal stage after launch. No country yet. The only thing we can do is intercept intercontinental ballistic missiles in 3 stages: boost phase interception, middle section, interception, and terminal interception. For DONGFENG-41, the mid-flight phase presents the greatest challenge because when flying over the Pacific Ocean, it is easily detected by the missile defense system. The DONGFENG-51 intercontinental ballistic missile, capable of striking targets beyond the limits of extreme capabilities, outperforms the DONGFENG-40. One more thing is needed: the DONGFENG-41 winds need to be powerful. There's the range requirement and the need to penetrate defenses. There's the need to adapt to different situations. Rail connection and rail change. Vietnam also needs an upgraded version of the DONGFENG-51 missile, as everyone knows. Ross's Sarmat intercontinental ballistic missile has a range of 18,000 kilometers. Its biggest feature is that it can heading straight across the Arctic to the United States. The Arctic region has a harsh environment that is simply not. There may be any anti-missile system present when the missile FLIs. After crossing the Arctic, they had already reached the United States. The speed of penetration exceeds Mach 20 and enters the terminal penetration phase in the upper atmosphere. Any anti-missile system will be rendered useless precisely because of this. The DONGFENG-51 shares some performance characteristics with the Sarmat. In many similar locations, the DONGFENG-51E's maximum range will exceed 16,000 kilometers. Moreover, it can carry more than 12 independently targetable reentry vehicles MIRVs. And the penetration speed at the end, it can undoubtedly reach Mach 2 or higher. If the question is raised, will the 51st Strike Force possess true global strike capability if it comes from the east? Northern region launches all. The 51 will be able to cross the Arctic and reach the Gulf of Tonkin directly. This route is also known as the death route for intercontinental ballistic missiles worldwide, because the intercontinental ballistic missile has already completed its mid-course flight along this route. There will be no interception when the aircraft appears over the target area. Possible. Some foreign media speculate that he will swing 50 times. Firstly, small countries, whose travel time is exclusively tailored for certain large countries, simply cannot enjoy the convenience of a 4-minute commute to Tokyo. 20. Just how powerful is the DONGFENG-51 DF-51? Capable of reaching New York in minutes? Has anyone actually driven it? Jokingly referring to Dong. Using a weapon as powerful as the Wind-51 against a small country would be a waste. Fee. First, it's an extremely long distance of 16,000 kilometers. If the range is too short, less than half the fuel will be used. The DONGFENG-51 can carry nuclear warheads with a total yield of up to 4,000 lb tons. If it really has to be given to a small country, it would definitely harm his father's body. Therefore many people believe that the DONGFENG-51 is that product specially customized for large countries, once truly. DONGFENG-5. The 11th will undertake the final task of counterattacking and achieving the effect of stopping war with war. DONGFENG-51 and DONGFENG-41 have. These are similar to, but not modified from, the DONGFENG-41. Rather, they represent a completely new strategic intercontinental ballistic missile. To ensure the DONGFENG-50, the DONGFENG-51 will still utilize vehicle mobility to enhance its battlefield survivability. The flexibility of vehicle mobility in 3 launch methods, train-based, silo-based, and mobile. Its superior concealment and difficulty in launching attacks make it highly effective against mobile targets, unlike the mobility of trains. Faster and more stealthy. It is also highly reliable and has the characteristics of rapid deployment, while the launch silo method is traditional. However, it makes missile storage and response to emergencies easier. To assess the yield and quantity of the warheads, therefore, once the DONGFENG-51 officially enters service, it will join other missiles in the DONGFENG family. High and low complementarity of the bullets. When my country's triad nuclear strike capability has a stronger deterrent effect. In your opinion, if the DONGFENG-51 were to enter service, how many missiles would be needed for use in Guam? The DONGFENG-17 will make the United States uneasy. To be honest, even if we gave the DONGFENG-17 to the whole world, 99% of the countries don't even know how to use it. Even if it's launched, it's impossible to hit the target. In the military field, no matter how advanced your missiles are, if you can't detect the enemy, or it's all for nothing if you can't capture or track the enemy. Supporting the DONGFENG era was a powerful space-based reconnaissance system, although the United States was very leading position in many fields, but they are truly incompetent when it comes to hypersonic weapons. The United States is divided into 2. If a country that wants to blow its own winds into a fraction of its strength actually manages to create something like the DONGFENG missile, this type of hypersonic wave missile has long been known worldwide. Everyone knows it, let alone hypersonic missiles, even. They failed to develop ordinary hypersonic missiles. Russia has indeed developed some hypersonic missiles using high-speed ramjet engines, but in terms of technology roadmap, and there were significant differences between the DONGFENG and DONGFENG periods. The reason why the DONGFENG period was advanced was because it became a reality for China to bring down Qian Zuosan. Qian Zuosan's ballistics theory was developed by the renowned scientist Qian Zuosan in the 1920s. A missile trajectory concept proposed in the 1940s. It possesses both the high speed of a ballistic missile and the cruise capability of a cruise missile. Missile's ability to change course is unparalleled worldwide. We know about Qian Zuosan's ballistic trajectory, but only China has made it a reality. You need a hypersonic wind tunnel before you can study hypersonic missiles. Wind tunnel. Laboratory is a human-centered laboratory. The process of generating and controlling airflow is used to simulate the flow of gas around an aircraft or physical object. It can also measure the effect of airflow on a solid object. A simple tubular experimental device for observing physical phenomena. In short, that is to use laboratory simulations of missile flight in the atmosphere. Even fighter jets and bombers need wind tunnel testing, but wind tunnels consume a lot of electricity. Huge, especially hypersonic speed wind tunnel. Its instantaneous power consumption is comparable to that of a town. Therefore, the power grid of an ordinary country simply cannot start a hypersonic wind tunnel. Only with a large amount of electricity and power supply. Only stable countries can do it. China's electricity generation ranks first in the world, exceeding that of the US, UK, and Russia combined. Only then can the wind tunnel area maintain continuous and stable operation. This laid a solid foundation for the work. So let alone the Dongfeng era, even if we gave away wind tunnels used for unemployment to others. Most countries, even the house, can't use it. Researching hypersonic missiles like the Dongfeng era missile not only requires wind. The whole also requires a supercomputer, and supercomputers consume enormous amounts of electricity. Some top-tier supercomputers even have annual electricity costs in the hundreds of millions. Among the world's top 500 supercomputers, China has over 200 of these supercomputers, if these were given to an ordinary country. So only electricity bills alone could bankrupt them. So you still feel the period of receiving the east wind was only one. This missile is a symbol of a major power's comprehensive strength, a treasure that even Yingzi envies. Once upon a time, we admired America's advanced technology, such as the B-2 bomber, but times have changed. I can smell other people envying us.